Thank you. Good morning. Just a name change, so I had to update the slides and hand them over, but thanks to the technical guys, they all made it work. Thank you. Also, I don't like to be introduced as the expert on this, but definitely I have a huge challenge. My background, I've been in manufacturing 26 years, mainly in operations. 5 years ago we were carved out from the Dow Chemical Company. So those that were in the previous presentation definitely have heard about all the good stuff that we've been doing in the Dow Chemical Company. And one of the things that came as an immediate challenge was you will have to migrate away from the old DCS systems that we inherited, the Mod 5s, to something new. So that's one of the challenges that we have, and I'm going to tell you a bit about that. Twinzio is a global company. We have roughly 2,100 people working in 27 countries, 19 production sites, many manufacturing units. Most of them, almost 90%, are all on Mod 5, so they all need to be migrated. We're the #1 producer of latex, polystyrene. We also make styrene, and supplier of synthetic rubber. With very proud on the asset mechanical reliability data. Our plants run extremely well and far above industry average. Bit of a company overview. We have our performance materials division and the basic plastics and feedstock division, also just reformed. But more important, let's go to the technical aspects. Safety, that was already #1 when we were part of Dow, and it hasn't changed. So when we became Styron and now Twinzio, safety is paramount. And for us, process safety is the most important thing. So when we're going through migration of DCS systems, we have to keep that in mind. Then you can ask, why do you migrate? Now, in our case, it's relatively simple. A few years from now, we will not have the license anymore to operate the Mod 5 systems. So I have a burning platform, I have management with me, and good reasons to move. But there are a lot of other things, like obsolete hardware, knowledge, because we're still working with systems of 25, 30 years ago, and how do you attract and retain new people that have to learn technology that's old-fashioned? It can be on information. I think Cliff in the previous discussion also clearly said, how do you bring all that information together? How do you improve your overall processes, your quality, your cost, and as we said, safety. It is quite a big challenge. As I said, we have till 2020 to migrate roughly 40 plants, 100,000 IOs. And in the beginning you start with this, you could say, relatively easy. We take what the parents did and go with ABB, but we thought we're a new company, so we're going to take a bit more time. We're going to evaluate who is our best partner to do this. And we came to the conclusion that ABB is our global partner, so we're going to migrate with them. And Lewis, he can definitely, is one of the experts, help us later on with some of the technical questions. We had a core team, we kicked that off, and then decided first to do the migration, mainly looking at how do we migrate the hardware in a mini plant. In 2030 we actually converted that one, and then we have the different technologies that we try to migrate. We had last year our first plant that we migrated, and we're actually working on several other plants this year. So the challenge that we have is how do we migrate 100,000 IO in 30 plus plants in 6 years? Of course, management asks us to do this at the lowest cost of ownership. And they also say, while you're doing this, so you're taking out the brains of the plant, we want to see no impact to environment, health, or safety, or to business. And not only that, you can migrate and still have an old machine, but you want to migrate to something that will allow you to be better. So be ready for the future. That's interesting for people to work, that will allow you to improve your overall business. Coming back on the reason why we have this session is integrated versus separate. For me, it was not a difficult question because I come with a background of Mod 5, where actually BPCS and SIL is in one computer. So I've had 20 plus years, I didn't know better, call it that way. And then we had to migrate to something else. So we go from a real integrated system to a system that will allow us to have the process control and safety in the same HI controller. Actually, the process control is run in different controllers. And I must say, the process safety guys that are working in our company actually like this. Because now they are sure, or at least it's a lot easier to manage your control, to manage your changes in these different systems. But the operators still like it as well. Because they still see it as a one system. So all the information is there in one place. And me as an operation leader, a manufacturing leader, like it as well, because I believe that having it all in one system actually has brought us to the high asset utilization rates that I showed before. Our asset reliability figures are extremely high because we can use information already on time, and actually we will be able to use some instruments, not only one, but we can use 3 for the same money. So my view on this, if I look at the advantages with an integrated control and safety, is that potential common cause are analyzed and minimized during design phase, but also when we're using it afterwards. Access control is implemented as a standard off-the-shelf feature, including wipe protection and bypassing an override mechanism. You do an integrated testing, not only during the design, but they can be used later on as well. And version control, compatibility, and interoperability are all part of the same release procedure. So it's all in one. Again, I also didn't have a choice because our system that we have to migrate from is an integrated system. So I didn't have 2 separate systems to start from. As I said before, for the operator, the big advantage that we have is they can interact with the same view, early warnings. Instruments can be used for multiple purposes, giving the operator better tools to troubleshoot and be more proactive without an increased cost. Personally, I believe it leads to an increased overall reliability. And also, one of the things that Larry mentioned earlier, because you can test it and you have separate systems, you're also sure that it works when it needs to work. But the big challenge is you need to have very good management systems to ensure that your integrity of your safety system is always guaranteed. And as I mentioned, our process safety guys are very glad that the logic is actually split between the two controllers. So some lessons learned, not only related to the safety system, but in migration in general. It is definitely possible. And we have also shown that you can do it in a relatively short period of time. So we can use the normal plant turnarounds to migrate a whole system. It is key that you have broad management support. Without that, it's very difficult to do these kind of mega projects. The other thing, and that was a question that was when I was asked, do you migrate because you're worried about cybersecurity? I said no. Actually, it is, now that we're talking about migration, that I'm getting worried about cybersecurity. It was an old fax system and it was all standalone and isolated, but we never worried about something happening with our controllers. Of course, in this day and age, it is a point of attention. When you're going through a process like this, I think it's also important, you know a lot, and definitely it is keen that your engineers are involved in doing the design because they know how to run the plant. But you need to ask a lot of questions and interact with the suppliers, because there's a lot there that probably you don't know. So be open for suggestions. Another observation with the ABB system, it is great to have an integrated system, but it also makes life pretty complex and brings some challenges. So testing is absolutely key, an absolute must. And as I said before, for us, it wasn't a discussion. We were looking for something which was integrated from a BPCS as well as a safety system. And if you have there the good preparation and good engineering, then the design is key. I think that's probably also true for those that have separate systems. And by the way, for those, I don't know if we have managers around here. There's always an easy story. Migrating is relatively easy. I can tell you it's not. And it quite often starts with the fact that our P&IDs are not up to date, our instrument lists are not up to date. So it's a lot of work. You have to check a lot of things. But if you prepare it well, it can be done. I would like to summarize this and then hand it over to the next speaker by saying that I believe that we as an industry have a challenge. We want to keep our plants running longer and longer. Upgrading the brain of the plant is quite often considered as a high cost and a high risk. So you simply don't get a lot of hands together to do this. It's much easier to talk about we're going to replace a pump than doing this kind of work. The other thing is, it's not only a challenge, it also brings a lot of opportunities. And that's already what we've been seeing in the first few months. It allows you to further improve your plant operations. It allows you to attract people. We've been able to hire a few new chemical engineers, and what a great way to start your career on a project like this. And it allows you to standardize a lot of the things that happened over the last few years, so it prepares you for the future. That's my contribution to this part, and I will hand it over to the next speaker later on.